Good morning and welcome to day 4 of AFMX 2021, the virtual edition. I'm Ivan Weiner, the executive director, and we are so excited for the center stage conversation coming up. Before we get started though, I wanted to make sure we thank our presenting sponsors. Albuquerque Film Office and Film Liaison Cindy McCrossan, Albuquerque the Magazine, Bernalillo County Commissioner Stephen Michael Quezada, Breza Terrena Olive Oil, Comcast NBC Universal, Real Solutions Airport Meet and Greet Service, Sunny 505, the Baker Law Group, University of New Mexico's Film and Digital Arts Program, Wells Fargo Advisors and Larry Schwartz, Yamaha Entertainment Group, and Jelska Road Productions. For a complete lineup of our entire program from beginning to end, just visit our website, AFMXNM.com. Without further ado, I want to introduce Kira Seipler, our Director of Operations.
Hello and good morning. Thank you for joining us today. And sorry about that little glitch at the beginning. I gotta love technology, but we thank you for your patience and thank you for joining us today for our center stage conversation, The Female Heroine, an Evolution, with Frances Lee McCain and Rebekah Wiggins, and our special guests, Ashley Sorrell and Hannah McPherson. I just want to let everybody know that you can ask questions today of our filmmakers. Just put your questions in the chat box and we will make sure to get all of your questions answered. And please note that this conversation will be recorded and available online through October 11th. I'd like to take this time to introduce our moderator. Rebekah Wiggins is a dynamic and passionate award-winning director, actor, intimacy coordinator, and a certified Chubbuck acting technique teacher with 15 years of experience in film, who specializes in telling gritty female-centric stories, highlighting various ethnic, religious, and sexual orientations. As a director, she's an innovative nonconformist who explores themes of loneliness, grief, unconditional love, and family. Wiggins is a dynamic blend mama bear who meets indie film champion, a fearless explorer of the human condition. She wrote and directed 2 films simultaneously following new COVID-19 film safety guidelines with cast and crew from all over the world. Clownfish and Ushering the Light. Both projects are showcased as vignettes in the feature film After Masks, now out on Amazon Prime. I'd like to introduce our guest speakers. Frances Lee McCain has appeared in many film productions since arriving in New Mexico in 2010, including recurring roles in Preacher and The Girlfriend Experience, roles in Better Call Saul, Midnight, Texas, Messiah, and she recently wrapped a feature role in the Netflix Queen Latifah project, End of the Road. During the pandemic, she appeared in the online piece Ushering in the Light, directed by our own Rebekah Wiggins. McCain received her theatrical training in the Royal Central School in London. She has appeared extensively on stage, on Broadway, off-Broadway, and regionally, including originating the role of Carol in Lemon Sky and playing Stella opposite John Voight and Faye Dunaway in A Streetcar Named Desire at the Los Angeles Ahmanson Theater. In LA, she also appeared in The Rep at Mark Taper Forum and was a member of the acting company and core faculty in San Francisco at the American Conservatory Theatre. Frances has a long and varied career in film, television, and theater, and is best known for featured roles in iconic films like Gremlins, Back to the Future, Footloose, among others. Our next guest is Ashley Sorrell, who is a writer, producer, and actor out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. She graduated from Loyola Marymount University in LA with an honors degree in screenwriting. She has been writing and acting in TV and film for over 15 years. In 2016, she wrote, produced, acted in the short film Dinner Guest that would be premiered at Austin Film Festival and played at numerous world-renowned film festivals. The film has been translated into several languages and is currently distributed online through soft.tv and more widely accessible through Gravitas Ventures. Her recent writing project, the darksome, disquieting female-driven Western Vicious Kin was a second rounder in the Austin Film Festival and was a quarterfinalist in the Creative World Awards and is currently in pre-production. Ashley is a SAG-eligible actor, and her recent credits include a commercial for Reform Alliance and Alejandro Montoya's indie favorite, Monday. As an actor, she has a vast range, but is known for her quick-thinking mind and big heart. Hannah McPherson, was born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. In 2014, she attended the UCLA professional program in writing for television. In 2015, Hannah created, wrote, and directed the edgy teen thriller series Tagged for Awesomeness TV and Hulu. She directed 2 episodes of the Netflix Trinket and wrote and directed Sick House, the first ever made-for-mobile vertically shot feature film. In 2019, she wrote and directed a feature film called Pure for Blumhouse, which is available on Hulu as part of the Into the Dark series. Hannah is in post-production on a feature film called Time Cut, produced by Ace Entertainment, and is in development on several TV series and feature projects. We have a wealth of talent in this room. I can't wait to hear from all of you. So please, let's welcome our moderator, Rebekah Wiggins.
Hi, oh, thank you, thank you. Hi, welcome ladies. It's such a pleasure, such an honor to be here with you all today, talking about the female heroine. And all of you have explored that in various capacities, and I'm so excited to talk to you all. So I just want to start us off with a quote from a book that I've been reading as I've been thinking a lot about developing the female heroine and what that looks like moving forward. It's from Elizabeth Lesser's book, Cassandra Speaks, and the quote is, "I am all of the above. I am gentle and empowered, serene and wild, maternal and sexual. These are not good or bad dichotomies. They are qualities that make us human." So I just want to start us off with that quote, and excuse the frog in my throat. I'm going to give this first question to Frances first. What is a heroine to you?
A heroine is a female hero. Yeah, it's a funny question, and I know we've all been grappling with it. So I looked it up because I thought, oh well, you know, we can always start with a definition from the dictionary. It's always a leaping off point, and the one that I came up with was a chief female character in a work of art with good qualities with whom a reader/observer is meant to identify. So I guess that's not a bad starting point. And heroines or female heroes have been with us since time immemorial, since stories have been told. So it's such a huge categorization that it's kind of hard to know where to grab hold of it and begin to speak about it. But that's a leaping off point.
That's great. I love it. I love it. I'm going to ask the same question, just starting off, since we're starting off with all the ladies. So to you, Ashley, what is a heroine?
I think it's some figure in maybe film or TV or in real life that I myself as a woman can see myself in, that inspires me with, you know, the way they move through the journey of their lives, whether it's fictional or not. And I think when it comes to kind of, I can't help but look at the counterpart of the male, right? In association with what it is to be a female heroine. If I look at the female version of that, it's like, for me to identify with this kind of figure, I think there has to be that divine femininity in it, right? Of compassion, of actually being a hero is being in touch with your emotions, being fully in the human experience, not just like fighting and saving the day. I think the strength actually comes from the softness. So to me, that I hope I'm making sense, but
Sure.
I'm like I'm in Mexico, so I'm kind of like had a lot of vitamin D, so not used to that. But you know, I think it is like I want to be able to relate with it, and in order to relate with that female heroine, I need to see a three-dimensional person, a three-dimensional fully within the human experience. So I'll leave it at that because I could keep rambling. So
beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And what you and Frances said is similar. And what I'm hearing is seeing a reflection of oneself in a hero, those heroic qualities, and really excavating and carving into the heroic qualities that are uniquely feminine: intuition, compassion, sensitivity, tribe-based thinking, right? Not solely feminine, but definitely strengths in the feminine. Yeah. I love that. Hannah, what about you? What is a heroine to you when you say that, or when you think of that word?
I do think the question is very complicated, and it has prodded me to be thinking on that the last few days. And I do think it's interesting, and we've all already touched on this, is that the word is gendered. And I tend to not think that way. I tend to try to just talk about heroes, and some of them are women and some of them are men, but you know, this is the society we live in and the construct we've been given, so we have to look at it and maybe look at why, and maybe there's some beauty in separating genders because we are different. But for me, in terms of who I like to tell stories about, it's really sort of just that. There is no chicken or the egg. To me, a hero is just the person who we turn our spotlight on. And I do think it's important that people find some amount of human characteristic. So even if it's real, it doesn't have to necessarily be relatable like the person next door. But we see, like everyone has said, there's a reflection. And I think throughout storytelling, the idea of being able to hold ourselves up to our ideas of heroes shapes like the human conversation. But I think we choose who our heroes are, right? As storytellers, we shine a light on someone and now they are our hero. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, like even the unlikely heroes, right? That's beautiful. I love that, finding the heroic qualities in them. That's gorgeous. All right, the next question. How would you characterize the heroine today? Like, what are you seeing reflected in media for the female heroine? Like, what are you seeing reflected in that currently? Frances, for you, like characters, maybe talk to us a little bit about certain characters that you've played in the past versus characters that you're playing now, and kind of the difference in that for you. Technology, Zoom.
Yeah, I think one of the first things that I want to say before we go any further with this discussion is that all of us, and we talked about this among ourselves, at least via email, are aware that we are not a diverse panel. We are a panel of white women, and it has, in that regard, when we speak about female heroines, or female heroines, of course, is a, whatever you call that, you don't have to say both words. They're each female. But I just wanted to acknowledge that, and that because what we think of as heroic is so dependent upon context, and our contexts are what they are. And we had hoped that we might have more diversity on this panel, but I'm thrilled with who we are, and that we are here and we have a chance to talk about these ideas, because we're very sensitive to the context in which heroism occurs. And I think, I'm sorry, but I'm losing track of the question. Catch me up on the question again.
No problem. So yeah, so I was just asking you, how would you, like, as far as changes in the heroines that you've played and that you've had the opportunity to play, like what have you noticed, like, through the years, the changes since you've been in the industry?
Well, mostly I've noticed that the roles that are offered and the stories that are told are reflecting to some degree what is happening in the society around us. So when I, of course, began, I know that I'm seen primarily as, the iconic mom. I mean, those are the roles that sort of came into prominence over a very long career, where I played a lot of other things as well, but those are the ones that sort of got seen and remembered. And so a brand occurred, which I really had nothing to do with. I have also played a young woman who was facing being an unwanted pregnancy and chose to have an abortion. This was back in the late 1970s when I was on Three's Company. I had already played a very iconic mother on Apple's Way, but then I played an abused wife. Who eventually comes to her senses and rats on her husband. I played in a piece I'm very proud of, called The War Widow. This was in 1976, a lesbian at the turn of the century who was a very independent woman, a photographer, making her way in New York in the early 1900s. So I've played a variety of women who I think are very heroic within the context of their time. And branding is something that I really hate the concept, frankly. I understand really, what is it? It's typing yourself. It's stereotyping or being typed. And that's, I hope that we'll sort of move away from that idea of that being a really important aspect of what especially actors have to do. I'm trying to cram a lot of thoughts that I have about all of this into a very small period of time, but there's an interesting coincidence, and I wanted to mention it this morning when I was reading the New York Times. Lo and behold, this just leapt out at me. There was a book review of a new book. It's coming out by a woman named Maria Tatar, or Tatar. I don't know how to pronounce her name, Tatar. She's a Harvard scholar, and it's her answer to Joseph Campbell's 1001 Faces of the Hero. It's 1001 Faces of the Heroine. And so I read a little bit about what she had to say, and I just wanted to mention that it's out there. So this topic is very much kind of up in the air right now. And every woman of every ethnicity and every socioeconomic background has a role model or someone who has helped them, or a story that has helped them understand how to navigate the context of their lives. And I mean, I think as storytellers, that's the most important thing we can offer anyone, including ourselves, is some assistance and some support along the way. Because as it says in the song "Angel from Montgomery," this book, believe in this living, is a hard way to go. So the help we can give each other, the better.
Is that John Prine?
Yeah.
Oh, so good. I love it.
He's a great storyteller.
God rest him. That's beautiful. I love that so much. I want to read that book, first of all. So I'll have to get it on my book list. And there's another book also, and you speaking about that, Cassandra Speaks, that I read the quote from, that I started the panel with. That's so powerful. And it's a retelling of mythology, of female mythology, from like Eve and Adam and Eve to Cassandra. That's really, really interesting too. And it's just a different perspective, which is what we're talking about, right? That kind of unique, and we all have our own. I have Becca's perspective, Hannah has Hannah's perspective. We've all had different experiences in lives, but how do we draw that into a storyline that can then relate and connect and create compassion, more compassion in the world? And that means more voices. So I love that, Frances. Thank you so much. It's beautiful. I'm going to get that book from you for my book list. The next question, I want to shoot over to Hannah. What kind of changes do you think need to be happening, or tweaks even in the female heroine, to kind of craft and hone in on her and her story, like a uniquely feminine story?
I mean, I think that's a great question. And I don't know that necessarily the stories are the issues, but the support for telling of the stories is the issues. I think there are plenty of stories, right? But the sort of support in, you know, finding even like financing to tell a uniquely, like what is sort of classified as a uniquely feminine story with a female lead is actually, you know, this business is money. And for some reason, there is the belief that it is harder to sell a story that's sort of about the female experience, even though there's definitely an audience for it. And I think we are seeing a lot of change. I feel that, you know, as a director, I am being given opportunities that I wouldn't have been given definitely 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. And I am thankful for that. I feel grateful that there is, at least it feels like a bit more of awareness, and therefore an attempt to invite people to the table to potentially have jobs and tell stories from a female perspective. I think that is the answer, is listening and supporting other women. I think my feeling is that if an equal amount of women got interviewed for every job, you know, from costume designer to writer to showrunner to director, that women would get more jobs, because we are, not to stereotype, but usually better prepared and potentially better at it, quite frankly. And I do think there is a like systemic patriarchal system that has allowed for the white men to succeed. And I think that all we can do as women is support other women, because once women are working more, we will be making people money. And if we make people money, I'm sorry that that's what it comes down to, but to me, that's what it feels like. If I can make some people some money, they will hire me again, and I can hire more women, and I can tell the stories I want to tell that usually are like a thinly veiled F you to the man. So that's all that I can hope for.
I love it. I love it. Period. I love it. Yeah, absolutely. And I do agree with you. I think things are changing, and it's really exciting to see new stories, new films, new series, you know, where I really see myself reflected in that, you know, and the feeling of like writing these stories too. And that's very exciting, you know, that people want to hear it now. You know, I think that's changed. A lot of that has changed, and I love that. Ashley, I'm going to shoot the same question to you, kind of in this sense of like, what do you want to see more of, too, of the heroine? Like, if we're talking about seeing reflections of ourselves, what is something that you want to see more of in these heroines that we're seeing depicted right now in cinema, film, television?
I mean, am I on? Okay, I'm unmuted. I 100%, yeah, not just talking. I 100% agree with Hannah in that we could write all the stories that we want day in and day out, but if someone's not giving us this platform, then it doesn't really get heard. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be writing them, because I think the act of writing them does do, like, not to get woo-woo, but it does do something, you know? It does a certain amount of healing, even if it's within ourselves. And those who actually listen to and hear those stories. I just want to see more of my own human experience reflected in cinema. And when I say that, I think it's not just like, oh, me, I just want to see myself, Ashley, only in cinema, because like that would be weird. But, you know, like the full spectrum of the human experience and what it is to actually like triumph and succeed, you know, as a female. Like I said, it's not saving the day in a physical sense. It's doing the right thing. It's feeling your feelings and going through the hard things and healing with compassion. So I just would want to see more of that in the things that I watch. And so often it's still a thing where you watch cinema and the women are just there to support the male journey, or to be the mom, or be, which is not a small thing, I'm a mom, but you know, that's not the central story. It's sort of like to help the other person save the day. And it's like, cool, what about me saving the day, you know? So I tried to like think about films, you know, recently, or television recently, that can be, you know, instances of this. I mean, you have like Wonder Woman, quite literally, she is a superhero, right? And like that was new when it first came out, and it's not necessarily new now, but it's like, oh, we can actually see a woman doing that. And then on the other side of it, I think of Frances McDormand's a recent Oscar, I think she won the Oscar for Nomadland, where it was like, I consider that a heroine's journey. Like it was really gritty and really hard. And in the end, she received transcendence, right? Like she didn't save a village from burning, or like, I don't know, she didn't do some gross physical act of hero, you know, being its hero, but it was like she survived her life. Like it's like she found healing and ultimate redemption. So to me, you know, it's like those two things, like the physical, being a physical heroine, like Wonder Woman, you know, and then like what it is to have a real unique female experience of what it is to be alive. And I think I just want to see more of that. You know, I want to see women who look like women, who are like have wrinkles and like are different colors and different sizes, and can have different looking families and relationships, and then for it to be okay and accepted, and for people to be really excited to go to the cinema or go to their TVs and watch it, rather than be like, ew, like I don't want to see that, or, you know, because when I see an unrealistic looking human or a person or circumstance in TV, I'm just less I think what we miss out on is the ability for story to be cathartic, and the ability for story to heal us, you know, like that's what we miss out on. You know, it's not just like, oh, well, like I don't look like that person, that sucks. It's like, no, we could have had an opportunity here. So I just don't want any more opportunities to be lost for people to be seen and heard and felt and expressed. And I think, you know, Becca and I are writing partners. It's what we try to do in our writing. It's like, how can we write a character here where there's some teenager out there that's going to look and be like, oh, that's me. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I'm okay because I'm seen and heard, and like there's space for me in the world, you know. I'm getting emotional, but like I just think that is what we can lose sometimes when we don't allow for all the voices, not just women, right? Mm-hmm. All the voices to be heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can get emotional. It's your superpower.
I know I can get emotional, especially with Becca, but yeah, it's just, I think it's an important topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, Ashley. I totally agree with you on all those levels. What I'm thinking of is Nomadland with Frances McDormand in it. I was really thinking about what is the journey. I just rewatched it. It's funny you brought that one up because I just rewatched it 2 days ago. And the whole journey was just a journey of inward grief and healing. A year of her life of inward grief and healing after losing her husband. And I found it so interesting. And there was times in the story where she wasn't likable. I mean, even like the way she treated other people, you know, it's like, but I loved that like that, I guess, like painted picture of a whole complex human in female form over the age of 50, and getting to ride the journey with her, because that's something we've all been through, grief in some form. And so just getting to see the human story there and her real reactions and responses, that she was on this trajectory. At the end, she has this opportunity, sorry, spoiler alert, to partner up with someone that there's romantic interest with. And she doesn't, because she's on her own path. And I think that's really interesting to me, is creating characters that aren't, when I'm thinking of the heroine, that she's not having to be coupled or locked to some other journey. She's just in her own. That's really powerful and really potent. So you're just reminding me of that as we're talking about it, and why it was so effective. Because I was like, why is this so powerful to me, right? Like when I think about it, she's kind of on a road trip for a year, and in her van, just her, and it's mostly Frances in the film. But there's a reason that she won that award. You know what I mean? It was like, it's just it's so powerful. Thank you, Kira. Beautiful. Thank you, ladies. Oh my gosh, such gorgeous. Okay, so I feel like we've shifted, right? And I feel like this is the shift in the conversation. Is it heroine or hero? I feel like Hannah answered this earlier, but I'll let Hannah, heroine or hero? I'll let you take it away.
I think it's hero. And I think that that is part of what we should all be doing, is, even to Ashley's point, that this is a much larger conversation. Sort of the people on this panel can address the personal parts that affect themselves. But there are, hero can apply to anyone. And I actually, because of what Frances did, looking up the definition, which is such a smart first move, because I'd been sort of wondering the same thing, is when I look up hero, the definition of hero, it is actually genderless. And then it refers to heroine is the female version, solely female. And I think it's a complicated issue because there are certain things that are female. And so in us wanting to tell our stories, we should be proud and assertive about the things that are uniquely female. I don't think the answer is to gender neutral everything by saying things, using only the word hero. But the reason I think to just sort of, maybe my choice would be like, if we only ever called anyone a hero, there's at least a level playing field to start out where, I recently read something I thought was really smart. It's probably like a tweet when I was like doom scrolling or something, that was like, why do we say female doctor, female engineer, female lawyer? Like, why isn't it just like, we hear lawyer and we think it's a man? I do that. And that's the way I was brought up. It's every song I ever listened to. It's every movie I ever saw. And so to maybe start at least, and especially because now, thankfully, we're starting to embrace non-binary and people who maybe don't identify, things aren't black and white anymore. So the ability for our language to start to accept the gray area, and then further conversation like, oh, well, is your hero a man or a woman or someone who, identifies differently? Let's have the conversation instead of it being implicit in the word.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. Yeah, I think it is kind of releasing those even old programmings, right? And like you said, with people who are non-binary, it's like, I love that we're in this beautiful gray space, this kind of human equalizing space. And I think it's finding the similarities rather than the differences. I'm interested in the human similarity, because in that we can come together, right? Rather than separation. That's really interesting. Not that the separations aren't valid and shouldn't be heard and seen too, but at the core, I want that distilled essence of grief, like we were talking about with Frances in Nomadland. It's like, because everyone can connect to that. Everyone can experience that. You might experience it in different forms or different stories, but I love that, Hannah. That's so good. Frances, for you, is it now the hero or the heroine? Just speaking on that a little bit for you too.
Well, hero. Not to go over ground that's already been very eloquently gone over. But I am thinking, as we're sitting here together, that I do think that heroicism is something that changes with the landscape of aging. And it's not just, and I don't mean aging into being old, although I am there. I mean the spectrum, the whole spectrum of progressing from childhood to adolescence to young adulthood to middle age, and then on toward where the landscape gets very foreshortened. You know, the horizon line gets closer and closer. And it requires different kinds of heroism at different times of life. And I think that to leap into this idea that there is a hero or a heroism that is one size fits all is obviously silly. But I think that it's very, very interesting to continue to explore at different times of life and also in different circumstances what is heroic, because sometimes heroic can be shutting up and doing nothing. That can be just as heroic as some extraordinary action in the world. And to be able to highlight when those things are called for and when they're not is a very interesting story in and of itself. One of the things that impressed me the most that I watched this year, I've watched so much more television than I ever have because of the pandemic. And I'm so grateful that I did, because I saw things across the spectrum that I would never have exposed myself to before. One of the things that I'm really thrilled that I saw was I May Destroy You on HBO by Michaela Cole, starring, writing, directing. I mean, she is such a force, and she's been given the opportunity to be such a wonderful force, and she absolutely rose to the occasion, in my opinion. And when she won the Emmy, which I happen to watch, which I never watch anymore, but I did because I'd seen enough of what was being offered this year or over the last year and a half, that I was interested to see how the awards went. And when she won that award, her acceptance speech was, to me, was incredibly heroic. It was simple, short. I pulled it, and I don't know if I can find it now. I'm kind of looking for it. Because I think yeah, okay. This is what she said. Write the tale that scares you, that makes you feel uncertain, that isn't comfortable. I dare you. Visibility these days seems to somehow equate to success. Do not be afraid to disappear from it, from us, for a while, and see what comes to you in the silence. That was pretty much all she said. I mean, and then she did talk about dedicating it to all women who had survived sexual abuse. And I thought it was so eloquent. I thought what she gave us in her writing, in her performance, in all of it was so unique and spectacularly heroic, because she presented us with a woman who really had made terrible choices, was kind of crazy, a very displaced woman from another culture trying to make her way in England. And in the course of it, she has to reckon with the consequences of her own actions, which then led to something that should never have happened to her, but did. And then having to come up from a depth of destruction, self-destruction, and destruction by another, come up from that place and move forward until she reckoned with what had really happened and brought it full circle to retribution. And I just thought it was an extraordinary journey of a story, a woman's story, without idealizing this woman in any way, but allowing her the real courage that is available if one cares to take the time to tap into it. So I just wanted to mention that today, because I was really thrilled that this is where we've come. I would never have seen something like this when I started out 50 odd years ago, very odd years ago. I would never have seen something like that. I don't even think I would have read it in a book. And here it is on an international platform available to us to see. And so I am extremely optimistic about where the thrust of the stories are going, the business is going. Hannah is absolutely right. There's no question that it is systemically, it belongs to white men still. I do run into white men who are a little more aware of that. I have worked with more women directors and producers in the last few years than I ever have in the course of my career. And I've worked with Rebekah, who, and all of you are shining lights. Ashley, I got to read one of Ashley's plays once. I got to be a character in one of her pieces, and Hannah will work together one of these days. But I just want to encourage you, especially because you're going to live into this. You're going to live into the stories in our future. And I want you to feel encouraged and seen and appreciated, and go for it, go for it.
I love that. It's so beautiful. Frances, will you read that quote one more time? I just feel like it was so powerful.
Let me see if I can find it again.
It was so powerful. It's just so
it is
cool.
very powerful. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it without cutting.
No, you find it. I'll stall.
Yeah, stall.
Yeah. I so beautiful, Hannah. Thank you for sharing so much wisdom, and Frances too. I'm so thankful to be here. And I think what we're all getting at, and now I'm getting emotional, but what we're all getting at here, it's something we're still discovering, right? This is something that we're excavating as we excavate ourselves and we work on ourselves, our human selves, right? And move through life. We develop heroic qualities within us. And then those are the qualities that we then connect to character. And it's so beautiful hearing you speak as well, Frances, because you're talking and joking about being in the industry a long time, but it's like you've had more experience on the ground as a human in general. And I think what I want to be doing more of is listening to other people's stories.
I found the quote if you want to hear it.
Yes, please. I'd love to hear it.
For all of you. Write the tale that scares you, that makes you feel uncertain, that isn't comfortable. I dare you. Visibility these days seems to somehow equate to success. Do not be afraid to disappear from it, from us, for a while, and see what comes to you in the silence.
That's so beautiful. I'm going to be asking you for that later.
Sure.
That's so gorgeous. I think the tale that scares you, that's the heroic thing. And I think about, I had the opportunity to work with Carrie Mulligan on a project. And one of the things she said to me was, I always select work that scares me. Because I was like, how do you pick like the next projects that you're going to do? And that really stuck with me. That has like changed the way I do things. So I think leaning into what scares us, those uncomfortable, ugly spots, in the human condition. And love that we shifted the conversation to hero, which I knew we would during this talk. I had a feeling with these three powerhouses on board. So I want to move to some of the audience questions to make sure I get people's questions answered. We have a question from the audience. Question. There are more female-centric production companies emerging to help change the narrative. How else can we expand the hero narrative for women? So I'm going to throw that to you, Ashley. There are more female-centric production companies emerging to help change the narrative. That's awesome. Hannah was talking about that. How else can we expand the hero narrative for women?
Story. I mean, it's like, it's where it starts, I think. Yes, you need opportunities, but if the story isn't there, then it's just not there. So like that quote that Frances read, you have to do things that scare you. You have to be willing to tell the story, even when you have no idea where it's going. Because oftentimes that's what it feels like to sit down and write the things that scare us. You sit down and you're like, I'm going to do it today. And then you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And that's actually, I mean, that sounds like I have no idea what I'm doing at all, like how to work final draft or something. Not like that, but like being okay to like hang out in the unknown. I'm thinking more of like the writer's journey. If you can commit to that and really complete something and go through the discomfort of not knowing, knowing and then not knowing, and knowing and then not knowing, then we'll have the interesting stories, you know? And I've had the opportunity to be a judge on screenwriting competitions. I've read a lot of scripts, and I don't read a lot of scripts written by females. I don't know why. Maybe it's just the wrong film festival, but I would say, and I'm not saying that the male written ones are not good, but it's a different lens, right? And so if you're watching this and you have an inkling and you have a feeling inside you that you have a story to tell, you do have a story to tell. We are, as humans, are storytellers. You do have something interesting to tell because you're in human experience. We all have something to say. So encouraging, if I could do one thing, like if I'm looking at like, what could I actually do to within my realm of possibility, right? To invoke change, it would be to encourage female storytellers, you know, to write the hard things, to write the thing that scares you, to do it anyways. Because otherwise, yeah, we won't have the foundation and the basis to share the story. And I also want to say, I've said this earlier, but even when you think no one's going to read it, even if the script doesn't necessarily have the success you think it, you know, the act of doing it creates a change in the world, whether felt or not felt, whether it's very subtle, whether it's just in yourself. It's important. You have to do it.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. Because it puts you back in the driver's seat, right? One of my favorite quotes is, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." So rather than sitting around and complaining, I've always taken the approach of like, okay, well, I'm not seeing this, so I want to play it, or I want to. And Hannah and I produced for a long time together. It's like I want to play that, and she would create incredible characters to play, things we weren't seeing been done. And Ashley and I right now are creating together characters that we want to see played out in the world that we aren't seeing enough of. So I think it's being the change and taking action, you know, not waiting for someone to hand you something, but taking action. And I know all these ladies in this group are big action takers. So that's what I'm hearing, Ashley, when I hear you say that. And yeah, if you have a story, we need to hear it. You know, someone needs to hear it, you know, even if it's not me personally. If you have a story, a heroic story that you've been on personally, someone will watch that and feel seen, heard, and understood. And that's art at its best, right? Is a compassion generator. So that's just was really reminding me of that. Thank you, Ashley. Beautiful. So
I want to say one more thing, if it's okay, just quickly. Too. I think that what would also need to go in that is like supporting each other. Like there's enough food at the table. There's room for all of us. I think there used to be this thing like where it was like women would feel threatened by other women succeeding. And maybe this is not related to gender, but if we're just the question is specific about females, right? Like anytime somebody wins, I win. We all win. And that was something I learned, like, just honestly in the last couple of years. Anytime, I really felt it and started to practice it. And it's actually in one of the old yogic texts. I'm also studying a lot of yoga, and it was like the way to act with other people. And one of them was anytime somebody has something that you want, you get excited and you get happy and you meet their energy, because then you're riding on that energy as well. And you're saying, oh my gosh, they can do it. I can do it. That's so cool. Like you just showed me that is possible in my life. And I just, you know, like, and to be really honest and just to show the darker side, I didn't always used to be that way, you know, used to be like, oh, dang it, how does she do that? How do I get that? I don't know how to get that. And it would frustrate me rather than being like, oh, let's celebrate, you know, hell yeah. Like when I succeed, they're like, hell yeah. It's like more good, right? More good. So I think if we're trying to think of how we can practically support each other tangibly here and now, yes, we want more agents who are going to hire female screenwriters. We want more production companies, but like, what can you and I do? These are some of the small things that I think actually do make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, supporting each other. I love that. That leads me to the next question beautifully. Thank you, Ashley. I'm going to give to Hannah. The question is, I love that it was said that we need to support each other, which Ashley just reiterated. Can you expand on how to do this? For example, on-set, offset, writing, and production.
Yeah, I think that there are some practical ways, no matter who you are, to support women in film and TV and women storytellers. And, you know, if anyone listening to this is in a position to hire, they should be making sure that women and many diverse perspectives are coming to the table for the job. You know, I do believe the best person should get the job, but I also think that if, you know, there was diverse representation in applicants, that we would start to see diverse people filling the roles. So, you know, if you can hire. If you can't, there are opportunities always to support female filmmakers who are having success. Like I went opening night to Wonder Woman, and I, you know, everyone can talk about if the movie is great or not, whatever, but I will never not be there opening night giving my overpriced movie ticket. And hopefully we can all be going to the theater again soon. I will pay whatever it costs to go and pay attention to female storytellers, get educated, understand which female showrunners or what TV shows they're making, and watch them. And if you like them, tell your friends to watch them. And so I think that, like I said, this is a business and we have to put money behind women. Women have to succeed financially at the box office, on the streamers, in order for there to be change. And there's no reason why they shouldn't. So I think a lot of that is just more about awareness. And then I think also mentoring is really important. And I think Ashley sort of started to touch on that, and it doesn't have to, you know, mentor maybe has some sort of like age requirement, but like I have a group of female filmmaker friends here in Los Angeles who we get together once a month. We call ourselves the Basement Club because we're sort of dark horror thriller genre type of people. But just to say, I had this problem with my manager, or this producer is asking me to do this amount of free work, and to get some insight, you know, not that I have, you know, other groups with different gendered people, but to sit with just women and say, this was my experience. Mm-hmm. And to occasionally have them go, you're being gaslit, and go, what, really? Like, is really valuable. And to also talk to them about money. How much money are you getting paid? Do you know how much like this male colleague friend of mine is getting paid? So having transparency, and it goes down to that competitiveness, that we should not be competitive. We should be supportive. And the more we all succeed, the more everyone succeeds.
The more we all succeed, the more we all succeed.
Success all around.
Yeah, that's great, Hannah. And that's beautiful because it's so practical too. And you're right, the money speaks. And it's like what I hear in you saying that is becoming a fan of each other. You know, it's like, and Ashley was talking about that as well, celebrating one another. I have like student success stories. I love sharing when someone has a success because it's like, it elevates us all. It makes me happy and joyful. And that joy is like a magnet for more good coming in. And I love the practical side of what you're saying too, just talking about like being gaslit, you know, it's like, what are you making on that? What are you in that total transparency of like, there's not ego in that. It's like, cause it's like, you know, it can be sensitive for some folks to like share financials of what they're making, but if you share that and then your friend is like, oh God, I'm only getting this rate for it, then they might have the courage to stand up and be like, and then the bar just little bit by little bit gets raised, you know?
Oh yeah, you're absolutely right. That is the power of the producer, is that somehow we've been made to feel to not share about money or working conditions or expectations for the amount of work we're doing for free. And we should share, because the power dynamic equalizes if there's real transparency. I guarantee, I'm making a general statement here, but that most women I know are doing more free work than the men I know in this business. There is some amount of free work we all do, and in the development phase, but it's like learned, it's expected, it's having representation who says you are no longer putting hours into this project for free, but it's also learning when it's appropriate to ask. And I think so I think it's like educating ourselves so that we're also better at it. I have to be better about saying my time is equally valuable, and I expect to be respected in that way.
Yeah, totally. Taking on personal responsibility also. Yeah, absolutely. That's so good, Hannah. Thank you. Thank you. Frances, this one's directly for you. How impactful was your experience as a stage actor when it came to your on-screen career?
Read the question again.
How impactful was your experience as a stage actor when it came to your on-screen career? So I think what they mean by that is the influence.
Yeah. Well, it was everything for me. I don't know another way, because that's the way it happened for me. But I think the main thing that I would say is that I went into film and television with a great deal of confidence in my abilities to analyze a role, to look at the arc of a role, to understand the importance of any individual scene or exchange with other actors within the context of the script, because that's what I'd spent so many years doing. I had spent years analyzing and practicing what it meant to work with other people, with a scene partner, so it was all preparation, and of course I continued and continue to do it, but I think that was it. So I really do feel pretty strongly about actors getting theatrical training of some kind, somewhere, somehow. If it's only class, that you go to on a consistent level with other actors, but to think that you can just put yourself out there with no experience, people do it, and some people make it. But I would not have known what in the world to do. And for me, the great luck of the draw was that I got cast in a television series pretty early on, and I had the opportunity to work in front of a camera and see the results of that work on a weekly basis. And that's the period of time in which I became very comfortable working in front of a camera. So you have to practice camera work, and you have to practice analysis work, and you have to practice with other actors. So, but for me, yes, I would have to say that theater training is a great plus, and it gives you a real step up.
Love it. Thank you, Frances. Ashley, I'm going to throw this next audience question to you. I want to get these in for everyone. As a writer, what are some stereotypes to avoid? Do you feel like you have any of this?
Like all of them.
All stereotypes.
No. I think that's not correct. But I think what we can look at is like, what is the stereotype? Like if you are going to watch a Western, you're going to expect that there is a stranger that comes into the town. You're going to expect like the villain, the bad guy who fights the stranger. Like there are certain things, whether conscious or not, that we know in our bodies. Like when we go to see a certain genre, whether you're a writer or not, you're expecting this feeling, you're expecting certain characters. And that's why we love like to repeat, But what I like to do with stereotypes is to say like, okay, cool, this is a villain. What if it was a woman? And what if it was, that's what we did in our Western. I was like, I love Westerns, but I'm ready to rewrite the stereotypes so that it's just a little more three-dimensional or four-dimensional or five-dimensional, whatever you want to call it. But people who are not just like looking a certain way or sounding a certain way. It's like you would go to watch a rom-com and you'd have like the lead beautiful girl next door and her frumpy best friend and like like all of that. Like, I don't think that we necessarily don't have like the best friend or the lead, but we try and make them like actual people who have their own full lives. So if you're going to have an accessory character like a
frumpy best friend
character that is the frumpy best friend, then she has to have her own life. She's not just frumpy best friend. She has like goals and like, so I love what like if you're looking at more of a stereotypical thing, like Never Have I Ever is Mindy Kaling's new like high school show. And like all the friends that are like the best friends of the lead, they're interesting. They're like, one is, she's just finding out she's a lesbian. She's African-American. She's got, great hair. And then there's like, the Asian and she's like into drama. Like they're different. They're not so like one way. I think you expand the box. There's still a box, but I would invite anyone who's writing to expand the box and see how can I make this character feel a little more alive, as if they were in my own life. Like there's this thing I taught in my screenwriting class where it's like, you almost want to go like opposite with people, when you're writing, like what would be the complete opposite of this character and see how this could fit in. Like whenever there's a villain, what if they were really, really, really sweet, because of course they're still bad, but like they don't behave like, it's like, how do I make this a little more interesting? Anyways, I could talk about this for a lot of hours, so I'm going to stop there. Hopefully that's helpful.
Talk about it for the rest of the hour.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think it's, finding the stereotype, but like what I'm hearing you say is finding the stereotype, but then humanizing and giving them desires and needs and connections, right? And we know that from psychology. It's like murderers have mothers or animals that they love and are very protective of. I mean, it's not painting people, again, like Hannah said earlier, not painting a black and white picture, but these beautiful shades of gray is what makes it interesting. This is a quick roundtable question. Okay, what are your favorite characters or heroes? Personally, I loved Marion Ravenwood from Raiders of the Lost Ark. I love it. So what's your favorite, like a favorite hero? I'll go to Frances with that one. She's shaking her head no. Okay, let's go to Hannah. Favorite hero. And I would say it can also be personal. Like I'm thinking of the women who've shaped my life and people that I admire and look up to as well. So do you have a hero?
I'll just go with the first thought that came to my mind. I was a very avid reader as a kid, and I read every Nancy Drew book on the planet. And I think, I have to be honest, I haven't seen the new Nancy Drew television show, but when I heard it was being developed, I was really intrigued because I love mystery. So I loved the sort of marriage of a teenage girl and her friends and solving a mystery. But I was really interested, and like I said, I don't know anything about the show, but the idea of Nancy in 2020 or 2021, and how even, when I think about my childhood in the 80s and 90s, how different it was, and in a lot of ways, wonderful changes have happened. But I do love just that the questions that people would start to ask are similar things to what we've brought up. Like, we don't have to just assume Nancy is straight. we don't have to assume Nancy identifies as a female. Like we don't, no longer do we have to make assumptions about our heroes. And I think what I guess I resonated with is we all talked about, we see ourselves in our heroes, but what heroes tend to do is make the choices we wouldn't or couldn't or can't or think we can't, but we could. And so, you know, there's lots of other inspirations that have definitely happened for me, like Scarlett O'Hara, but I feel like, you know, Gone with the Wind, for better or worse, is part of cancel culture. So I'm not going to, you know, but she, you know, given her circumstances, Scarlett, you know, grabbed that carrot out of the ground and looked for a better tomorrow. And, you know, I think we are living in a better tomorrow, and we can keep pushing, you know, every day.
I love that. Nancy Drew, of course, Nancy Drew is your favorite.
You could have answered the question for me.
I should have answered that. I love it so much. And so cool, like so beautiful that you're talking about the perspective of like, yeah, is Nancy straight? Does she not identify as female? Like there's all these other things that can add now to her complexity and things we can say with the character. I love it. Make that, Hannah. Get it made. Frances, now I'm going to throw it to you. This is for all of us. Do you have any heroes that in your life?
I've had so many over the years. That's why I just, you know, went there, because it's just to pull one out of the hat is really hard. But Hannah reminded me that I could just grab one from early adolescence, or even, I guess, slightly before adolescence. I really don't remember what age I was, but I loved Doris Day as Calamity Jane. Fabulous, wonderful. And you know, I've looked back at that over the years and had to laugh, because I'll watch it every decade or so, just because I you know, it's fun for me to imagine, what was it about that? Well, first of all, she was outdoorsy. She loved to ride horses. She hung out with the guys. She, you know, now we look at it, and she sort of fell in love with a girl who was like a super girly girl. And then she got to try to be a super girly girl too. And so she sort of began to incorporate her own femininity through this relationship with this woman. Well, of course, now it's become kind of LGBTQ iconic in a way. You know, there's so many ways to look at that film. That's not where she goes. She goes to cisgender reality, I guess. But that whole journey of that wonderful spirit that she was able to sort of hand us. And I learned all the songs, and in fact, I think in middle school, I actually did, oh, the redwood stage is coming out over the crest. I did that at an assembly. Oh, Lord. That was one of my early appearances on stage. Anyway, I think that for me, there was always something interesting about that we had so locked ourselves into one or the other, to male or female. And I think that instinctively I got that we have so much within each of us, whatever our assigned birth. It's amazing how we talk about gender fluidity now. I think it's just extraordinary. And how commonplace it's become, all for the better. But you know, I wound up a very conventional kind of female, and yet that was one of my great role models. And I like myself for that.
I love yourself for that. Please sing that song again. I like that we got like the whole performance.
Whip crack away.
It's so good. It made me
wonder I didn't become a dominatrix or something.
Yeah. It's not too late, Frances.
Thank you, Rebekah.
Oh my gosh, I want to rewatch that. Ashley, what about you, dear? Heroes when you were a kiddo, or now, or whatever.
Well, when I was a kid, I was thinking of now, but if I have something that comes for kid, I'll come back to it. But I think now I have a wonderful support system of family and friends that are always trying to do the right thing. So I really feel super blessed that I'm like surrounded by good people. I think every mother is a goddamn hero.
Sure.
You know, one of my favorite heroes recently in cinema, I loved the movie Roma by Alfonso Cuarón. The lead actress, she was like, she played a maid that was like based on this real person in his life. And she really like held the family up, but it was in such an unassuming way. And I think in the end, spoiler alert, she like saves one of the children. And it's, I don't know, I really loved that example of a hero, because it was tender. You know, it's not like, oh, I'm gonna get you and save you out of the water. It was like the subtle ways she was trying to keep it together. I thought was wonderful.
Oh, I love that. That's so
I can't think of any when I was little, but if I do, I'll write it in the chat.
Okay, great.
Can I jump in with a thought I had?
Yeah.
Hearing us talk about this, I feel like maybe an additional word that I would throw in there with the definition of hero has to do with being aspirational, and that doesn't necessarily look, and I hear that word a lot in pitches and pitch meetings, and I think it can be seen as just a buzzword, but I actually do think it's important because, you know, the woman that Ashley chose is maybe not conventionally living an aspirational life as a maid in Mexico City, but her choices, her ability to be strong in like a calm, not like showy way is very aspirational. And so anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
I love that. And I totally agree that, aspirational. Because what is aspirational is the selflessness, right, that Ashley's talking about in there, and the quiet strength. And I think that's really potent. For me, Pippi Longstocking, who was my favorite, total tomboy. I had a bowl haircut and aviator glasses as a kid, like very like genderless. She was the adventurer. So Pippi Longstocking, and then of course our moms. My gosh, my mom, who was a single mom with 3 little kids that she raised, you know, and with joy. She raised us with joy, like such a joyful household. And then I also think of Tilda Swinton's performance in I Am Love. It's a woman who flips her life upside down to go after something she wants and isn't afraid to do that. So that comes to mind for me in that. I love it so much. We have one more question that I want to get to. Do you find that there is an issue writing female characters who have more stereotypically masculine traits, as if through a male lens and experience of the world, rather than celebrating the masculine, feminine, and non-gender traits that is the character? I'm going to read that again. Do you find that there is an issue writing female characters who have more stereotypically masculine traits, as if through a male lens and experience in the world, rather than celebrating masculine, feminine, and non-gender traits that is the character? So I guess what they're asking in that is, do you feel like there's more celebration of the masculine qualities rather than the feminine? Hannah, and I'll throw that to you.
I do hear a lot, just write her like she's a man. And I think that sentence needs to be dissected. And obviously this conversation is something we all could go on and on and on about, but there is actually value in that. I think my immediate thought is to reject that. But I think if I'm at least giving credit to the person who's saying sort of an idiotic thing like that, it is that, to Ashley's point about stereotype, is that for so long, women have sort of felt, you know, fit into sort of like 6 or 7 archetypal molds for what she's either the slut, the mother, the mistress. I guess maybe there's a lot of slut versions of women out there. So, or the frumpy best friend, we always get that. And so, whereas men can literally be anything. And so I think that if in the best sense of that, we take it to mean, right, just a unique, specific person, then that's the best that can come from that.
I love it. You breathed in, so you were done.
Yeah, I'm done.
Yes, totally. Absolutely. Writing a whole, complex, complete human. I'm going to close us out with a quote here today. And ladies, I want to thank you all for joining. Hannah, so good to see you. Thank you. Thank you for like all the humor and the wisdom. Frances, thank you for all the humor and the dance moves and the wisdom. Ashley, thank you for taking a break on your vacation to come and talk with us about this, about all this important stuff. And you guys are so inspiring. I feel like, again, supporting each other, watching each other's work, sharing each other's work, helping each other however we can help one another, you know? And if you have a story out there, it's yours for a reason. It needs to be shared because someone needs to hear that story. So I'm going to close this with this quote. It's from Britt Marling's op-ed, "I do not want to be the female lead," which is an incredible op-ed in the New York Times. If you haven't read it, look it up. Here we go. We're talking about the silence and asking all these questions. "But even in the silence, I dream of answers. I imagine new structures and mythologies born from the choreography of our female bodies, non-gendered bodies, bodies of color, disabled bodies. I imagine excavating my own desires, wants, and needs, which I have buried so deeply, to meet the desires, wants, and needs of men around me. That I am not yet sure of how my own desire and power as a protagonist of a narrative would reveal itself. These are not yet solutions, but they're places to dig." Britt Marling. Yay. Anybody have closing thoughts?
Just thank you very much.
Yes, thank you all. Thanks to AFMX and Kira, Ivan, Melody,
Yes.
especially Ashley
Thank
and Hannah. Thank you, Rebecca.
You all for making it so much fun. I knew I was just going to get to
Fun.
ask questions and listen to all the good stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Becca, for curating this. This is so well done. And I often wanted to hear what you had to say on a lot of these questions, but I know you as a friend, so I know I can kind of picture, but
I was just
she's
channeling.
amazing. Yeah.
I was just channeling through you ladies. You basically,
Yeah, sure.
you said it. I'm like,
Yeah.
Hannah, say this. Frances, say this.
Thank you, ladies,
you.
all. That was an inspirational conversation. I appreciate everyone's input, all the questions that came through, and I can't wait to go back and see the recording. And yes, this was recorded, so if you want to go back and look at it, it will be available online until October 11th. Thank you again, Frances McCain, Rebekah Wiggins, Ashley Sorrell, and Hannah McPherson. Stay tuned for our next block that comes up at 2 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. It is film block number 7, and our own Albuquerque's Ron Reisberg will be moderating that short block. So stay tuned, and if you need to have more information on the upcoming events and tickets, go to our website at afmxnm.com. Thanks again for joining.
Thank you, everyone.